now we fast forward from that to whatever happens after that. They get chased around a lot, and then we get to episode 5.
Again, another perfect character. So in this case, think about what she's able to do. Like the woman, what is her name? I can't remember it. Imperial agent woman. Tala. So think about the only reason she dies is because she offs herself. Like she is that powerful that no one can take her down. She does this thing with an Imperial officer where the Imperial officer's like, you're not supposed to be here. And she's like, oh, really? Well, why don't you come over here in the corner and I'll tell you why I'm supposed to be here. And the guy's like, okay, sure. Let's just go where no one can see me. And then, oh, bam! This is the woman that literally slaps a stormtrooper unconscious. That's how powerful she is. Slap with one hand. I don't know if you saw that, but if you looked at, she gets attacked by 2 stormtroopers that are she's being escorted by 2 stormtroopers, and she surprises them by slapping one of them unconscious.
Yes, well, we do know that the whole series was directed, and probably most of it was written by women.
No, that's just it though. The guy that did this, it was a guy.
Really, I thought it was a woman that directed it.
I think what's her name? Deborah Chow, I think, or something like that, was involved in the directing, but the actual main showrunner was a man. His name was Joby Harold, I think.
But for me, it didn't matter about the gender, who did what. You can replace the female with the male, and it would still be ridiculous. So it doesn't matter the face. It's just, look at this scene here. This is a great scene here. Oh wait, I got grenades. They're in a cave.
But then
there's like thousands of stormtroopers. Thousands. Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you saw that scene, it looked like Spartacus. Okay. Versus like 10 people in a cave. And, all of a sudden after she gets shot, she's like, oh, I got grenades. I'm just thinking to myself, wait a minute here. They've been in this cave long enough to create like places for them to live, like, this great, place for their starships to come and park and then go out. They must have been here for years, and they didn't think that they had grenades to use grenades against these people. I mean, they were shooting pistols at them. Okay. Yeah. Pistols. And of course, thank God for the, inaccuracy of the stormtroopers, because let me tell you, they couldn't shoot fish in a barrel. It was crazy. This was the worst battle scene I have ever seen, where they had literally thousands of stormtroopers shooting at a handful of rebels and missing them. They actually showed a scene. Where a stormtrooper had his pistol right up against the guy's chest, and then he was able to hit him. It's just, there's so many discontinuities. There's just so many things. There's another episode where, they show Kenobi and Leia, in the back of this truck, and they drive up to a gate, and instead of, after they take care of everybody, instead of going through the around the gate, they actually had to figure out some way to open the gate and then walk through it. But if you look at the picture and the scene, you can actually just go around the gate.
Just go around. Again, I mean, I'm going back to who this is intended for. So if you think about that scene, and that's a great scene to review, the only reason that scene the way it is the way it is because they set it in the middle of nowhere. So they picked some weird spot where there was nothing. So it's just a bizarre scene where you're looking around and there's these groups of stormtroopers doing nothing. Like, what are they doing? There's no buildings. They're just kind of standing around, wandering. I mean, this is like a video game. In a video game, like sometimes you'll see these little clusters of NPCs that are somehow like villains, and you have to go fight this cluster of, NPCs. But if you walk away and then come back later, they're back because they respawned. So that's what this feels like. It feels like a video game. Yeah. But again, it's because they made the choice of putting it on this planet. Now, I mean, think about the original series. They really made a point of of crafting really memorable and exotic locations. And there's just nothing about this entire series that is memorable or exotic. I mean, think about like the forest moon of Endor. Everyone loved that. Even though it's just the redwoods, it still felt like, wow, this is a different kind of planet that's really interesting and has unique circumstances. Even Tatooine, when you first saw it, a desert planet with nothing but desert. That was interesting the first time you saw it.
Or Hoth.
Or Hoth. Right, all these planets are like super interesting. The first Dagobah, right? I mean, you had to love Dagobah because they were just so different and interesting. There was some effort to think about what is a bizarre, even if they're places taken from the Earth, from our world, but they have a otherworldly look to them. They look really interesting and different. It brings your imagination of being a spacefarer and going to these really exotic places, and none of that was happening in Obi-Wan. The most exotic place they could think of was like just rolling kind of like scrub hills. That's not exotic at all. One of the things that was interesting in Rogue One was they chose to set it like on effectively a tropical paradise. They have these stormtroopers running through the beach, and that was interesting because I'd never seen that before. It was an interesting location. They kept that theme going of just interesting locations. And then you go to like Solo, where it's not an interesting location, but at least they put some of it on like a train that rotates in a weird way that kind of gives it sort of an interesting feel. Or if you've watched the Clone Wars, if you think of Rebels, if you think of Lothal, Lothal always had that very otherworldly quality to it because of the way that the stones, existed and things like that. So they made some effort to make it otherworldly, which they didn't make at all in Obi-Wan. And once again, the reason they didn't do it is because all that stuff costs money. And even though they had the money to do it, they definitely had the money to do it. They didn't because their audience were the people lining their pockets. So that's why.
I agree with you. There's nothing memorable about the scenes.
Tatooine for the third time, and Joby Harold, he said, well, the only way we had to use Leia because it was the only way to get Kenobi off world. Which
it's pretty bad. I mean, not only is the writing bad, but just the the script itself, the whole scheme, and there's just too many bad loopholes and just too many nonsensical like storylines going on here. And I mean, this is the other nonsensical storyline. What is the deal here? She first she comes to the dark side because Darth Vader or Anakin doesn't kill her, and then she tries to kill Darth Vader, but then she fails at that, and so now she's gonna go back and try to kill Luke. So I didn't understand this dynamic. I didn't understand what she was going through, and in the end, I still don't. I think maybe she was in her warped, mind. She thought by killing Luke, it'll get back at Vader somehow. I'm not really sure, or maybe because she is a youngling, maybe she knows that somehow Luke saves Darth Vader. I have no idea. This is like why it hurts my brain to think about this.
Well, but I think it's worth it to think about how contrived this is, because for one, Bail Organa has to mention Tatooine in a message that he knows can be intercepted. So he's like, oh, by the way, make sure that that your secret mission in Tatooine is okay. He says this on an open
yes, that's
frequency.
Right. That's right.
Oh, so that's the first thing. Oh, hold on. So it gets even worse. So what's contrived is, number one, that she would survive being stabbed by a lightsaber at the age of 10
the heart.
Begin with.
That's stabbed through the heart.
Okay, I mean, there are some characters that are built around this premise, and they could have done that with her. So if you're familiar with the games at all, if you're familiar with, I think, KOTOR 2, they have a character named Darth Sion, that his whole thing is that he is basically living by will alone.
Okay.
So he gets killed, you kill him, more or less. And he's just like, no, I'm not killed, because his entire thing is you can't kill me because I won't allow that to happen. So he is a crazy villain, and the idea that he can just continue living through will alone in the Force is really novel. It's a very interesting perspective for this villain. It makes him scary because it's just like, how do you beat the guy that will never admit that he's been beaten? Which is what apparently it's going to take. But so they could have done that with her, where she is this force of will that is preserving herself by virtue of force of will. But in the case of Darth Sion, he was halfway falling apart. He was physically, crazy if you see his picture, because he was just this absolute single-minded focus that had to exist 24 hours a day. Like if he slept, he would die. So they don't give that to her. She's not like that. And yet she manages to survive being stabbed by Darth Vader twice. Are you kidding me? And this is someone who absolutely knows whether he has succeeded or failed. He would not, this is not someone, Anakin isn't like guessing that killing whether or not you don't just survive that because you play dead.
Yeah, he's like, oh, look, I
he
think
can literally
no, he will kill you.
Your life. Well, I mean, he could sense whether or not she was dead or alive. He could sense it through the Force. He would absolutely know that.
You're right.
So it's totally contrived.
Loophole.
Okay, so that's contrived. The fact that she survives the second stabbing is contrived. The fact that she actually attacks him when it's absolutely against plan. What is exactly she going to do? Her whole plan is to sneak up behind Darth Vader and attack him with a thing that makes noise. This is not a quiet thing. She turns on her lightsaber. I can hear it. It makes a sound. It's like trying to attack someone sneak up behind someone with a chainsaw. How does that work? This is absolutely impossible.
Well, I mean, I thought about that for a little bit, and I think she agreed with Kenobi's plan that he gave her right before, which was, I'll tell you what, I'll lure him in, and then you sneak up behind him and try to stab him. And she believed him.
Right, but he wasn't there when that happened.
I know, because that was the whole plan. You let me escape. I'll lure him in, and you can stab him from behind.
I mean, that's like the Monty Python skit from in the Quest for the Holy Grail. All right.
Yes.
You stay here, and then you go ahead. Oh, it's like a ridiculous. It's like parody. It's
yes, it is. That's
so
what
that
I'm
was
saying.
contrived that she would attack him.
She caught
had
Kenobi.
All this time. You know what she could have done with all this time? She could have known that Darth Vader was coming there, and she could have just littered the place with thermal detonators. Grenades. She could have just littered it. It would be everywhere. She could have just blown the entire planet up. But she doesn't do that. So, she chooses some weird time to do it. She gets stabbed. And then the guy who has the communicating device just happens to drop it, sees that he drops it, and then fails to pick it up, even though it would take mere steps to do it. And he's been entrusted with this by Obi-Wan, who specifically told him to take care of this. Why did Obi-Wan give him this communicator to begin with? Well, maybe because he thought he was going to be captured. Okay, fine. But if he gave it to the guy is part of the resistance. He has to know dropping it's a bad thing. And he could have just stopped and picked it up, but he didn't do that. So that's just contrived. And then even if she hears the message, how does she know where Owen lives? How does she know how to find this guy? How does she know what exactly she's supposed to do here?
Well, everything she does remember him from the first episode,
because she knows his name, because she said, what is your name? And I'm going to remember your name forever. And therefore they set that up. But come on, she remembers every random person's name.
how did she even fly to Tatooine? How did she even get there?
How did she heal
was
herself?
Dying in a hangar that was empty.
And she stabbed through the middle. Now, I don't know. My anatomy's a little fuzzy on this point. But if you're a doctor, right? So let's just see how this works from a doctor perspective. If you have a big gaping hole, you have a hole in the middle of you. Okay.
She doesn't survive, Qui-Gon got stabbed there.
So is there anything relevant or significant, like in terms of bodily functionality that happens in the middle of your body? So if there was a giant hole in the middle of your body, like for example, I don't know, say for example, your spine,
your lungs, your aorta.
But are those things actually necessary? And if you did have a giant hole in you,
maybe she force healed. I don't know.
When things come out, is the body meant? Is there like a detachable? She's basically been given a colonoscopy. Like is there? It just makes no sense. So then she goes there. Then they don't just leave. Like Owen even knows she's coming, and they don't just leave.
No, of course not. They're going to protect their home. Didn't you hear that? We're going to protect
You have an inquisitor, a person with a laser sword coming to your house, one that can move things with their mind. That's the person you're going to protect your house from? Are you kidding me? Like, what insane person would do this? And he does it. Why does he do that, by the way? Owen has a perfectly good plan. He's like, we're going to get out of here. And then Baru is like, no, we need to stay and protect the house. So once again, right, the guy is overridden by the woman, in this case, who has to be right, but it has an absolutely insane plan that makes no sense. So no one in the right mind would do this.
So that is the episodes 1 through 6 of Star Wars.
So
did I stop the screen sharing?
You did, but that's okay. That's okay. I want to make this point. I think that that we go into this and we think like, oh, okay, they must just be really, really stupid to do this. Like the Pink Panther scene, of course, if you recall, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes,
the Pink Panther scene with the little girl in the trench coat, and no one notices. So all of that stuff, it's like the assumption is that the people that make this don't know how bad it is. But I feel like that's completely incorrect. That everyone from Kathleen Kennedy on up knows exactly how bad this is. It's their business. They're actually in the business of doing this. So if we as just random people can see this as obviously bad, so can they. They absolutely know what they're doing. They absolutely did this on purpose. So, and I say that they did this on purpose because when you start looking like at these patterns, like all the new trilogy that happens, you start looking at different decisions that happen. This is intentional. They know exactly what they're doing. And I think that it's a disservice to think that these people are it's like you think that they're stupid, but the joke's on you because you're the one actually being fooled here. That they are fooling you into believing that this is just simply the virtue of their own incompetence or stupidity, that they couldn't possibly be doing this on purpose. But I suggest to you that they absolutely are doing this on purpose, and this didn't fool anyone. That they absolutely know how bad this is. They're aware of it. Is completely, apparently, clearly aware of it, and that they are doing it because they are leeching money out of the series at that $25 million per episode when times 6, right? $150 million, that a substantial amount of that money went into people's pockets. And those are the people who care about it and who got it to where it is. They got it to where it is because they cut every possible corner. They got the cheapest writers. They got the cheapest directors. They got the cheapest people to be in it. They cut every possible corner because there's no possible way that series costs $150 million. And so where did the rest of it go? Well, I would suggest that the rest of it went into producers' pockets. That a lot of people made a lot of money off this, and that Disney's not going to complain about it because, in the end of the day, this kind of terrible content gets what we're doing right now, which is it gets people to talk about it. And then people talk about it and they're like, oh, really? Well, I want to see that for myself. And now Disney gets another X number of subscribers out of the deal. So Disney gets more subscribers. They're happy. The producers get their pockets lined. They're happy. Everyone's a winner in this situation, except of course anyone who cares about the content. But that's not the biggest concern. Subscribers, the money that the producers are being paid, those are where these decisions are being made, not in the actual content.
That sounds like a good plan until it all comes crumbling down. So I suspect that some people are gonna, some heads are gonna roll eventually, because man, that is some bad content.
But Kathleen Kennedy, no, but look back at The Force Awakens. Look at all of this stuff. I mean, this isn't new. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, those are terrible. They're just absolutely awful, and I mean, there's a lot of bad things that have been said about them. It didn't stop Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy is embedded where she is. She's never going anywhere because she knows how to turn disaster art into dollars for Disney. And as long as that is true, and it's true still, because their Disney Plus subscription numbers keep going up, and those subscription numbers are largely due to Star Wars, which is Kathleen Kennedy's bailiwick.
Well,
so she has made disaster profitable, and she can do that because she can make disaster profitable. We will see more disaster. So you can predict that Ahsoka or Mandalorian season 3 or whatever else is eventually going to get tanked by this. The only saving grace, I think, for the entire Star Wars universe is Dave Filoni, because he did a pretty good job on Clone Wars. He did a pretty good job on Rebels, and maybe where he is involved, he'll have enough influence to save some of this stuff. But I don't know. I think in the end, Kathleen Kennedy has made disaster profitable, and so she'll keep doing it.
That's a sad point for all the Star Wars fans out there.